अश्वतरशत शिष्मार भक्तिवेदांत नारायण स्वयं देव की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपार अश्वतरशत शिष्मार भक्तिवेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपार अश्वतरशत शिष्मार भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपार अश्वतरशत शिष्मार भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपार अश्वतरशत शिष्मार भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल विष्णु महाभागवत श्री गोक्षर चरंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नितिल विष्णु वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री रघुनाथ दास बाबा जी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपनु गौरी गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल पतदास रघुनाथ शारद गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय। नाम अक्षय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट विरत गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्री नितिल श्री विश्वनाथ चक्रवर्ती ठाकुर पर की जय। श्री सार्थदर्शिनी वृत्ति की जय। श्री श्यामानंद प्रभु की जय। तदीय शुभ तिरुभाव तिथि की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रीनिताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। हरि बोल। गर्गराज जी, रोहित राधा कृष्णन जी, रूप मंजरी दीदी, गंगा दीदी, रसेश्वरी माता जी, Dandavat pranams to all of you. Om Jnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swati Namine. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhya evacha patitanang pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namaha vadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namne gauratvishe namaha. Gurave gaurachandraya radhikaya tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna bhaktaya tarbhaktaya namo namaha. Yang prabrajantam apeta krityam Dvaipayano viraha katara ajuhava putreti tanmayataya taravo bhinedustang sarvabhuta hridayam munimanatosmi narayanam namaskritya narang chaiva rottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tojayam udirayet shrinang swakatha krishna punashravana kirtanam Hridantasto hyabadrani vidhunoti suhritsatam Nashta prayeshvabadreshu tang bhagavata sevaya Bhagavatyuttama shloke bharbhavati naishtaki Tavai vasmi na jivami tvaya vina Iti vidaya radhe tvang nayamam charanantikam Bhaktya vihina aparada lakshai Kshiptastakama ditarangamade Kripa mai tvam sharanam prapana Vrinde namaste charanaravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right, so I'll just jump right into it. Read about Krishna's appearance within the prison cell. Beautiful description. And then Vasudev's, and then Devaki's prayers. What was the last thing that Devaki said? Let's just go through that. The last thing she said, she said, at the time of devastation, the entire cosmos, containing all created moving and non-moving entities, enters your transcendental body and is held there without difficulty. But now this transcendental form has taken birth from my womb. People will not be able to believe this, and I shall become an object of ridicule. So now Krishna responds. This is verse 32. The Supreme Personality of Godhead replied, "My dear mother, best of the chaste, in your previous birth, in the Swayambhuva millennium, you were known as Prishni, and Vasudev, who was the most pious Prajapati, was named Sutapa." Sārārtha-darśinī commentary by Śrīla Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The Lord said, "O mother, not only in this birth, but in previous births, I have appeared in your womb. Why are you fallen? You are not an ordinary human. During the reign of Swayambhuva Manu, you became Prishni, Devaki. I don't know why it says "oh" there. Anyways, Sati and Vasudev, Sati Devaki and Vasudev was your husband Sutapa. Oh, I don't think that "and" should be there. That should be a comma. So Sati, O Devaki, Vasudev was your husband Sutapa. Verse 33. When both of you were ordered by Lord Brahma to create progeny, you first underwent severe austerities by controlling your senses. Verse 34-35. My dear mother and my dear father and mother, you endured rain, wind, strong sun, scorching heat, and severe cold, suffering all sorts of inconvenience according to different seasons. By practicing pranayam to control the air within the body through yoga, and by eating only air and dry leaves fallen from the trees, you cleansed from your minds all dirty things. In this way, desiring a benediction for me, you worshipped me with peaceful minds. Commentary. Atapa means intense burning due to the sun's rays, and krama means heat. Verse 36. Thus you spent 12,000 celestial years performing difficult activities of tapasya in consciousness of me, Krishna consciousness. Commentary. Maratmano means absorbing your minds in me. Verse 37 and 38. O sinless mother Devaki, after the expiry of 12,000 celestial years, in which you constantly contemplated me within the core of your heart with great faith, devotion, and austerity, I was very much satisfied with you. Since I am the best of all bestowers of benediction, I appeared in the same Krishna to ask you to take from me the benediction you desired. You then expressed your desire to have a son exactly like me. Commentary. Because of your austerities and meditation on me, I became very pleased to appear in that form, the four-handed form. The austerity performed was constant meditation on the Lord with devotion and faith. The use of the three words Nityang and Bhaktya indicates that the devotion of Prishni and Sutapa were not merely a form of yoga practice. Rather, their devotion is total absorption in the Lord, which by itself leads to perfection and prem. However, the bhakti, the devotion of Prishni and Sutapa, was mixed with Gyan and Aishwarya because they practice yoga. There's lots of mistakes in this book. Anyways, because they practice yoga and severe austerities. Some also reason that since the Nitya Siddha Parikars, the eternal associates of the Lord, Vasudeva and Devaki, had Nitya Siddha Aishwarya Gyan mixed with bhakti, their Ankshas, Prishni and Sutapa, also had mixed bhakti. Their austerities in yoga practice were therefore incidental. Bhavita, fixed in determination. This word is issued instead of chintata. The meditation of Prishni and Sutapa was filled with bhav, transcendental love. In other words, they had genuine pure devotion for the Lord. Verse 39. Being husband and wife, but always sonless, you were attracted by sexual desires. For by the influence of Deva Maya, transcendental love, you wanted to have me as your son. Therefore, you never desired to be liberated from this material world. Commentary. Mayaya refers to Devaki and Vasudev's affection for their son. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.843 says, Vaishnavim vyatanom mayan putra sneha maying vibhu. By the influence of his internal potency, Yoga Maya, Krishna inspired Mother Yashoda to become absorbed in intense maternal affection for her son. Mohito. This means that Devaki and Vasudeva were overcome with bliss. Being childless and detached from material enjoyment, but overcome with bliss by parental affection, you did not pray for liberation. Verse 40. After you received that benediction and I disappeared, you engaged yourselves in sex to have a son like me, and I fulfilled your desire. Commentary. Desiring in this way for a son, you then engaged in sexual intercourse. According to the Sanskrit dictionary, Amar Kosh, Gramyam Bhogan means sex life. Verse 41. Since I found no one else as highly elevated as you in simplicity and other qualities of good character, I appeared in this world as Prishni Garbha, or one who is celebrated as having taken birth from Prishni. Commentary. In my first birth, I appeared as Prishni Garbha. This refers to the Treta Yuga avatar mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11:6. Vishnu Yagya Prishni Garbha Sarvadev Urukrama. In Treta Yuga, the Lord is glorified by the names Vishnu, Yagya, Prishni Garbha, Sarvadeva, Uma, and etc. Verse 42. In the next millennium, I again appeared from the two of you, who appeared as my mother Aditi and my father Kashyapa. I was known as Upendra, and because of being a dwarf, I was also known as Vaman. Commentary. He who appeared as Vaman to Aditi and Kashyapa has now appeared as your son, myself. Verse 43. O supremely chaste mother, I, the same personality, have now appeared of you both as your son for the third time. Take my words as the truth. Commentary. In the present birth, I have been born with 4 arms. I was born in the first birth as Prishni Garbha, second birth as Vaman, and now in the third birth I am born. This indicates that the birth as Krishna is the full, complete form, and the previous 2 are his ankshas, partial expansions. In verse 31 of this chapter, Krishna told Devaki, "You were previously Prishni," but he did not say, "Prishni is you." In verse 45, Krishna says, "By knowing I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by constantly thinking of me with love as your son, you will go to my spiritual abode." By these evidences, it is shown that Prishni and Sutapa are expansions of Devaki and Vasudeva. Verse 4. I have shown you this form of Vishnu just to remind you of my previous births. Otherwise, if I appeared like an ordinary human child, I believe that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu has indeed appeared. Commentary. I have appeared in a four-armed Vishnu form because you would not recognize me as God if I appeared in my complete, original two-armed human-like form. Verse 45. Both of you, husband and wife, constantly think of me, but always know that I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By thus thinking of me constantly with love and affection, you will achieve the highest perfection, returning home back to Godhead. Commentary. In the scriptures describing worship of Krishna through mantras, Vasudeva is mentioned as the father of Krishna. This shows without doubt that Vasudeva is eternally in the position of Krishna's father. But in order to increase their bliss by promising perfection of their son in this birth, their status as Krishna's eternal associates, the Parikars, is hidden in this verse. By thinking of me, you will attain me. The actual meaning of this, however, is, I will now go to my most excellent eternal abode of Gokul. After this, I will return to Mathura, and you will meet me at that time. But now I will be separated from you. Verse 46. Śrī Śuka Uvacha. Shukadeva Goswami said, after thus instructing his father and mother, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna remained silent. In their presence, by his eternal energy, he then transformed himself into a small human child. In other words, he transformed himself into his original form, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Okay, I forgot I didn't have my phone on me, in case anybody has comments. Commentary. Atma Mayaya, own spiritual energy. According to the Mahasamhita, Atma Mayaya means by one's own free will. Babhuva Prakrita Shishu, became a human being. This means that Krishna manifested his eternally perfect spiritual form as a baby, but not a material baby. Prakrita, Prakriti, Sarup and Swabhav, each personality. In referring to great souls on earth, they are called Prakriti Siddha. Thus the word Prakrita here means Sarup or Swabhav, material in this context, because there are statements like the following from the Srimad Bhagavatam 10.9.13, which contradict this. Na chantar na bahiryasya na purvam na pichaparam. Purvaparam bahishchantar jagato yo jagatchaya. Tam matvatmajam avyaktam martyalingam adhokshajam. Gopikolu kale damna babandha prakritam yata. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no beginning and no end, no exterior and no interior, no front and no rear. In other words, he is all-pervading. Because he is not under the influence of the elements of time, for him there is no difference between past, present, and future. He exists in his own transcendental form at all times. Being absolute beyond relativity, he is free from distinctions between cause and effect, although he is the cause of an effect of everything. That unmanifested person who is beyond the perception of the senses had now appeared as a human child, and Mother Yashoda, considering him her own ordinary child, bound him to the wooden mortar with a rope. In this statement, it is clear that he who Mother Yashoda bound up was like an ordinary material child, Prakrita Shishu. But actually, he was not Prakrita. He was aprakrita, completely spiritual. Therefore, the Lord showed his original spiritual form as a baby. Verse 47. Thereafter, exactly when Vasudeva being inspired by the personality of Godhead, was about to take the newborn child from the delivery room, Yogamaya, the Lord's spiritual energy, took birth as the daughter of the wife of Maharaj Nanda. Commentary. Vasudeva was instructed by Lord Krishna, "If you are afraid, then take me to Gokul and bring the child of Yashoda, Yogamaya, back here." After being instructed, Vasudeva saw that his chains automatically loosened. When Vasudeva was about to leave the prison, Yogamaya took birth in Gokul as the daughter of Yashoda. Vangsha says that in the 8th month of pregnancy, before full term, Devaki and Yashoda gave birth at the same time to their children. But the Bhagavatam states that Yashoda gave birth after Devaki. How to correlate these contradictory statements? Exactly when Devaki gave birth to Krishna in Mathura, Yashoda also gave birth to Krishna in Gokul. After that, as described, Yashoda gave birth to Yogamaya. Thus, two children appeared from Yashoda at different times. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 9, which describes Yogamaya as Anuja, the younger sister of Krishna. And God mentions this in his purport when we get to that verse. And that's evidence that Krishna was born in Vrindavan from the womb, directly from the womb of Yashoda. But when Krishna appeared from Yashoda, it is not stated that he had 4 hands. Therefore, it is understood that Krishna appeared from Yashoda because she worshipped Krishna without understanding his godhood. But Vasudeva and Devaki worshipped their son as Vishnu. Verse 48 to 49. By the of Yogamaya, all the doorkeepers fell fast asleep, their senses unable to work, and the other inhabitants of the house also fell deeply asleep. When the sun rises, the darkness automatically disappears. Similarly, when Vasudeva appeared, this should be Vasudeva, long A. Anyways. Similarly, when Vasudeva appeared, the closed doors, which were strongly pinned with iron and locked with iron chains, opened automatically. Since the clouds in the sky were mildly thundering and showering, Ananta, an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, followed Vasudeva beginning from the door, with hoods expanded to protect Vasudeva and the transcendental child. Commentary. Through her expansion, Yogamaya covered the knowledge gathering senses of the doorkeepers, so they fell into deep sleep. Swayam Vyavarayanta automatically opened wide. The doors were insurmountable, being made of thick panels, huge bolts and chains. But they opened by themselves, just like the sun driving away darkness. Upankshu, mildly resound. Clouds began to rumble softly. Shesh, expansion of Lord Balaram, spread his hood like an umbrella. Brahmanda Puran says, Shayasana Paridhana Paduka Chatra Chamarai Kim Nabhus Tasya Krishnamurti Bhedais Chamurtishu. Whenever Lord Shri Krishna takes different forms, Lord Balaram's expansion Shesh serves Krishna as his bed, seat, shoes, umbrella, and chamar. Verse 50. Because of constant rain sent by the demigod Indra, the river Yamuna was filled with deep water, foaming about with fiercely whirling waves. But as the great Indian Ocean had formerly given way to Lord Ramachandra by allowing him to construct a bridge, the river Yamuna gave way to Vasudeva and allowed him to cross. The river Yamuna is filled with deep water, but she gave way to Vasudeva just as the great Indian Ocean did for Lord Ram. Verse 51. When Vasudeva reached the house of Nanda Maharaj, he saw that all the cowherd men were fast asleep. Thus he placed his own son on the bed of Yashoda, picked up her daughter, an expansion of Yogamaya, and then returned to his residence, the prison house of Kamsa. Taking Yashoda's daughter, Vasudeva returned to the prison. From the mundane point of view, it appears unjustified that Vasudeva, who is supposed to be following the highest principles, condones the sacrifice of another's child to protect his own. Vasudeva cannot be accused of callousness, however, because his normal sense of discrimination was parental love, Vatsalya Prem, for Lord Krishna, who had appeared as his son. Verse 52. This is the last verse. Vasudeva placed the female child on the bed of Devaki, bound his legs with the iron shackles, and thus remained there as before. Commentary. Bind again. Vasudeva placed the chains back on his feet. Oh, there's 53 verses. I thought there was 52 verses in this chapter. Okay. Verse 53. Exhausted by the labor of childbirth, Yashoda was overwhelmed with sleep and unable to understand what kind of child had been born to her. Commentary. Parishranta, heavy labor. Because of the labor of childbirth, Yashoda only knew that she had given birth, but she did not know whether her offspring was a boy or girl. After the birth, Yashoda got relief from the labor pains, fell asleep, and forgot cha also. The word cha also means everything. Taking this meaning then, Yashoda, like Devaki, clearly understood that her offspring was Param, the all-attractive Supreme Person. By tasting Krishna's sweetness, Yashoda understood that he was the Supreme. Yashoda realized Krishna's true nature, the potency given by the Lord. Unlike Devaki, Yashoda did not know that Krishna was the Supreme Lord because of his specific bodily features, such as forearms, Kaustuba jewel, and chakra. The fact that Krishna was also born to Yashoda is not very well known. Because Yashoda and Devaki were friends, Yashoda gave her fame to Devaki and allowed Devaki to become famous as the mother of Krishna. The name Yashoda means to give, fame, Yasho. Yasho dadati, to give fame. However, the name Devaki is also another name of Mother Yashoda, as stated in the Brihad Vishnu Puran. Dve namni nandabriyaya Yashoda devakiti cha atta saktasya devakya shorijayaya. The wife of Nanda had two names, Yashoda and also Devaki. Therefore, it was natural that she, the wife of Nanda, developed Franki, the wife of Shori, Vasudeva. This is also the Vaishnav Toshani, Ananda Vrindavan Champu, and Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Thus ends the commentary on the third chapter of the 10th canto of Bhagavatam for the pleasure of the devotees in accordance with the previous acharyas. Wow, that was a cool purport. Just more and more proof that Krishna was actually the son of Yashoda. All right, so now let's read about Śyāmānanda, and then if there's a good amount of time, then we can read from Srila Prabhupada's purport. Or maybe Srila Prabhupada's purport, and then in the last, because this is so short with this, and not break our Bhagavatam flow. So I'm going to start the 4th chapter now. Sorry, I've just been so flat out these days. I've not been preparing everything as nicely. Let me check the comments, see if everything's running okay. Oh man, it looks like one of my streams is having connection issues. Dandavat Pranams Didi and Yashoda Didi and Sudevi Didi. Oh, that makes sense. Yes. Okay. he appeared in the ordinary. It's not like he came out of the hall. Got it. That makes sense. Okay, everything's been fine on YouTube. I don't know why it does that. All right, so now we're going to begin the 4th chapter. The atrocities of King Kangsa. This chapter describes how Kangsa, following the advice of his demoniac friends, considered the persecution of he considered the persecution of small children to be very. After Vasudeva bound himself with iron shackles as before, all the doors of the prison house closed by the influence of Yogamaya, who then began crying as a newborn child. This crying awakens others, who immediately informed Kangsa that a child had been born to Devaki. Upon hearing this news, Kangsa appeared with great force in the maternity room, and in spite of Devaki's pleas that the child be saved, the demon forcibly snatched the child from Devaki's hands against a rock. Unfortunately for Kangsa, however, the newborn child slipped away from his hands, rose above his head, and appeared as the 8-armed form of Durga. Durga then told Kangsa, "The enemy you contemplate has taken birth somewhere else. Therefore, your plan to persecute all the children will prove futile." According to the prophet, the 8th child of Devaki would kill Kangsa, and therefore, when Kangsa saw the 8th child was a female and heard the called enemy had taken birth elsewhere, he was struck with wonder. He decided to release Devaki and Vasudeva, and he admitted before them the wrongness of his atrocities. Falling at the feet of Devaki and Vasudeva, he begged their pardon and tried to convince them that because the events had taken place were destined to happen, they should not be unhappy for his having killed so many of their children. Vasudeva, being naturally very pious, immediately excused Kangsa for his atrocities, and Kangsa, after seeing that his sister and brother-in-law were happy, to his home. After the night passed, however, Kangsa called for his ministers and informed them of all that had happened. The ministers, who were all demons, advised Kangsa that because his enemy had already taken birth somewhere else, all the children born within the past 10 days in the villages of his kingdom should be killed. Although the demigods always feared Kangsa, they should not be treated leniently. Since they were, Kangsa should try his best to uproot their existence. The demoniac ministers further advised that Kangsa and the demons continue their enmity toward Vishnu, because Vishnu is the original person among all the demigods. The Brahmins, the cows, the Vedas, austerity, truthfulness, control of the senses and mind, faithfulness, and mercy are among the different parts of the body of Vishnu, who is the order of the demigods, including Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Therefore, the ministers advised, the demigods, the saintly, the cows, and the Brahmins should be systematically purged. Strongly advised in this way by his friends, the demoniac ministers, Kangsa approved of their instructions and considered it beneficial to be envious of the Brahmanas. Following Kangsa's orders, therefore, the demons began committing atrocities all over Vrajabhumi. Śrī Śyāmānanda Uvacha. Bahirantapuradvara sarvapurvavrita tato bala dhaning shrutva grihapala samuttita. Shukadeva Goswami continued, "My dear King Parikshit, the doors inside and outside the house closed as before. Thereafter, the inhabitants of the house, especially the watchmen, heard the crying of the newborn child, and thus awakened from their beds." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The acts of Yogamaya are distinctly visible in this chapter, in which Devaki and Vasudeva excuse Kangsa for his many devious atrocities, his many devious, atrocious activities, and Kangsa becomes and falls at their feet. Before the awakening of the watchman and the others in the prison house, many others. Krishna was born and transferred to the home of Yashoda and Gokul. The strong doors opened and again closed, and Vasudeva resumed his former condition of being shackled. The watchmen, however, could feel this. They awakened only when they heard the crying of the newborn child Yogamaya. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has remarked that since the watchmen were like dogs. At night, the dogs in the streets act like watchmen. If one dog barks, many other dogs immediately follow it by barking. Although the street dogs are not appointed by anyone to act as watchmen, I think they are responsible for protecting the neighborhood, and as soon as someone unknown enters it, they all begin to bark. Both Yashoda and Mahamaya act in all materials. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha. But although the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead acts under the Supreme Lord's direction, maya dakshena prakriti suyate sa characharam, dog-like watchmen such as politicians and diplomats, protecting their neighborhoods from the danger of the outside world. These are the Maya, but one who surrenders to Krishna is relieved and afforded by the dogs and dog-like guardians of this material world. Te tuturnam upavrajya devakya garva janmatat achakyur bojarajaya tad udvigna pratikshate. Thereafter, all the watchmen very quickly approached King Kamsa, the ruler of the Bhoja dynasty, and submitted the news of the birth of Devaki's child. Kamsa, who had awaited this news very anxiously, immediately took action. Purport. Kamsa was very anxiously waiting because of that the eighth child of Devaki would kill him. This time, naturally, he was awake and waiting, and when the watchman approached him, he immediately took action to kill the child. Satalpaturnamutthaya kaloyam itiva vivala sutti grihaturnam praskalan mukta murdhaja. Kamsa immediately got up from bed, thinking, "Here is Kal, the supreme time factor, which has taken." Thus overwhelmed, Kamsa, his hair skin his head, at once approached the place where the child had been born. The word Kala is significant. Although the child was born to kill Kamsa, Kamsa thought that this was to kill the child, so that he himself would be saved. Kala is actually another name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead when he appears only for the purpose of killing time. When Arjuna inquired from Krishna in his universal form, "Who are you?" the Lord presented himself as Kala, death personified, to kill. By nature's law, when there is an unwanted increase in population, Kala appears, and by some arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, people are killed wholesale in different ways, by war, pestilence, famine, and so on. What's pestilence mean? A fatal epidemic disease, especially bubonic plague. Oh yeah, I remember looking this word up before. At that time, even political leaders go to church, mosque, or temple for protection by God or gods, and submissively say, before that, they pay no attention to God, not caring to know, but when Kala appears, they say, God willing. Death is but another supreme Kal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the time of death, the atheist must submit to his supreme Kal, to this supreme Kal. Then the Supreme Personality of Godhead takes away all his possessions, and forces him to accept another body, tata dehantara prapti. This the atheists do not know, and if they do know, they neglect it so that they go on with their normal life. The Krishna consciousness movement is trying to teach them that although for a few years one may act as a great protector or a great watchman, with the appearance of death, one must take another body by the laws of nature. Not knowing this, they unnecessarily waste their time and patience as watchdogs, and do not try to get the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As it is clearly said, aprapya mam nivartante mrityu sangsara vartamani. With consciousness, one is condemned to continue wandering in birth and death, not knowing what will happen in one's next birth. Bhratarang devi kripana karunam sati snusheyam tava kalyana striyang mahantumarhasi. Devaki helplessly appealed to Kamsa. My dear brother, all good fortune unto you. Don't kill this girl. She will be your daughter. Indeed, it is unworthy of you to kill a woman. Kamsa had previously excused Devaki because he thought that a woman should not be killed, especially when pregnant. But now, by the influence of Maya, he was prepared to kill a woman. Not only a woman, but a small, helpless newborn child. Devaki wanted to save her brother from this terrible, sinful act. Therefore, she told him, "Don't be so atrocious as to kill a female child. Let there be all good fortune for you." Demons can do anything for their personal benefit, not considering what is pious or vicious. But Devaki, on the contrary, although safe because she had already given son, Krishna, was anxious to save the daughter of someone else. This was natural for her. I would say Shri Mataji. Oh, yeah. Yes. Bhavo hingsita bhrata shishava pavakopama tvaya daiva nisrishtena putrikaika pradiyatam. My dear brother, by the influence of destiny, you have already killed many babies, each of them as bright fire. But kindly spare this daughter. Give her to me as your gift. Purport. Here we see that Devaki first focused on his atrocious activities, his killing of her many sons. Then she wanted to compromise with him by saying that whatever he had done was not his fault, but was ordained by destiny. Then she appealed to him to give her the daughter as a gift. Devaki was the daughter of a kshatriya and knew how to play the political game. In politics, there are different methods of achieving success. First, repression, dam, then compromise, sam, then asking for a gift, dan. And Devaki first adopted the policy of repression by directly attacking Kamsa for having cruelly, atrociously killed her babies. Then she compromised by saying that this was not his fault, and then she begged for a gift. As we learn from the history of Bharat, or Greater India, the wives and daughters of the ruling class, the kshatriyas, knew the political game, but we never find that a woman was given the post of executive. This is in accordance with the injunctions of Manu Samhita, but unfortunately, Manu Samhita is now being insulted, and the Arya members of Vedic society cannot do anything. Such is the nature of Kali Yuga. Nothing happens unless ordained by destiny. Tasyaiva hetu praetako vido nalabhyate tar brahmam uparyadha talabhyate dukkavar anyata sukham kalena sarvatra ranghasa. Devaki knew very well that because the killing of her many children ordained by destiny, Kamsa was not to be blamed. There was no need to give good instruction to Kamsa. Upadesho himurkanam prakopaya. That's from Chanakya Pandit. If a foolish person is given good instructions, he becomes more and more angry. Moreover, a cruel person is more dangerous than a snake. A snake and a cruel person are both cruel, but a cruel person is more dangerous because although a snake can be charmed by mantras or subdued by herbs, a cruel person cannot be subdued by any means. The nature of Kamsa. Nanvaham te hyavaraja dena hatta sutta prabhu datum arhasi mandaya angemam charamam prajam. My lord, my brother, I am very poor, being bereft of all my children, but still I am your young sister, and therefore it would be worthy of you to give me this last child as a gift. Shishuka uvacha upaguhyatmajam evam rudatya dina dina yat chitastam vinirbhartsya hastar achichide kala. Shukadev Goswami continued, piteously embracing her child and crying, Devaki begged Kamsa for the child. But he was so cruel that he chaffed and forcibly snatched the child from her hands. Purport. Although Devaki was crying like a very woman, actually she was not, and therefore the word used here is dinavat, like a poor person. She had already given birth to Krishna. Therefore, who could have been richer than she? Even the demigods had come to offer prayers to Devaki, but she played the part of a poor, piteously afflicted woman because she wanted to save the daughter of Yashoda. Tang grihitva charanayor jatamatram svasu sutam apotayach chila prishte swarton mulita sohrita. Having uprooted all relationships with his sister because of intense selfishness, Kamsa, who was sitting on his knees, grasped the newborn child by the legs and tried to dash her against the surface of a stone. Satadastat samutpatya sadodevyambaram gata adrishyata Nuja Vishnu Sayudhashta Mahabhuja. The child, Yogamaya Devi, the younger sister of Lord Vishnu, slipped up Kamsa's hands and appeared in the sky as Devi, the goddess with 8 arms, completely equipped with weapons. Purport. Kamsa tried to dash the child downward against stone, but since she was Yogamaya, the younger sister of Vishnu, she slipped upward and assumed the form of the goddess Durga. The word Anuja, meaning sister, is significant. When Vishnu or Krishna took birth from Devaki, he must have taken birth from Yashoda also. Otherwise, how could Yogamaya have been Anuja, the Lord's younger sister? See, that's it. That's what we've been talking about. This is the purport. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, strong evidence that Krishna was born directly from the womb of Yashoda, not just her foster child. Devya srag ambaralepa bharana bhushita Dhanu Shuleshu Charmasi Shanka Chakra Gadadhara Siddha Charana Gandharvair Apsara Kinnaro Ragai Upahrito Rubalibhi Stuyamane Dama Bravit. The goddess Durga was decorated with flower garlands, smeared with sandalwood pulp, and dressed with excellent garments and ornaments made of valuable jewels. Holding in her hands a bow, a trident, a sword, a conch shell, a disc, and a club, and being praised by celestial beings like Apsaras, Kindas, Uragas, Sahas, Charanas, and Gandharvas, who worshipped her with all kinds of presentations, as follows. King Maya Hataya Manda Kansa Jataka Lantakrit Yatra Va Purva Shatrur Mahingshi Kripanam Vrita. O Kamsa, you fool! What will be the use of killing me? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has been your enemy from the very beginning and who will kill you, has already taken his birth somewhere else. Therefore, do not unnecessarily kill other children. Iti prabhashatang devi maya bhagavati bhuvi bahunama niketeshu bahunama bhabhuvaha. After speaking to Kamsa in this way, the goddess Durga Maya appeared in different places, such as Varanasi, and became celebrated by different names: Annapurna, Durga, Kali, Bhadra. I think this is a good place to end. I'll just read this purport and then we can stop. Durga is celebrated in Kolkata, Kali. In Bombay is Mumba Devi. In Varanasi is Annapurna. In Kathak as Bhadra Kali. And in Ahmedabad as Bhadra. Thus, in different places, she is known Ahmedabad. Sorry. Her devotees are known as a worshipper of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas worshippers of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself are called Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are destined to return home back to Godhead in the spirit world, whereas the Shaktas are destined to live within this material world to enjoy different types of material happiness. In the material world, the living entity must accept different types of bodies. Brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarudhani maya. It's Bhagavad Gita 1861. According to the living entity's desire, Yoga Maya, or Maya, the goddess Durga, gives him a particular body, which is mentioned as yantra, a machine. Living entities who are promoted to the spiritual world do not return to the prison house of a material body. Takta deham punarjana naiti mam eti sorujuna. Words janma na eti indicates that these living entities remain in their original spiritual bodies to enjoy the company of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the transcendental abodes Vaikuntha and Vrindavan. So we'll hear what happens next tomorrow after this. Yeah, this is a good cliffhanger. What does Kamsa do next? So now, today is the disciple Śrī Śyāmānanda Prabhu. The following is above anuvad of the katha given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Bharati Goswami Maharaj on his appearance to April 25th, 2013. This is really short. Today is the appearance day of Śrī Śyāmānanda Prabhu. From the worldly perspective, he was born in West Bengal in the town of Bahadurpur, within the Burdhaman district, in the Sargopa caste. His parents, having suffered much grief due to having lost several of their children at birth prior to Śyāmānanda, named him Dukhi, literally meaning one who is sad, to ward off any further. So that if any calamity was to come, they were sorry for him. Like, okay, we won't. Later, he went to Ambika Kalna and accepted Diksha from a disciple of Gauridas Pandit, Shri Hridayananda, who later came to be known as Hriday Chaitanya. Shyamananda was awarded the name Krishnadas at initiation and thenceforth came to be known as Dukhi Krishnadas. Dukhi Krishnadas stuttered. I just stuttered. Dukhi Krishnadas studied under the tutelage of Srila Jiva Goswami in Vrindavan, along with fellow students, Nartam and Shri. Eventually, Dukhi Krishnadas was awarded the title Shyamananda by the Vishva Vaishnava Raj Sabha, while Nartam received the title Thakur Mahashaya, and Srinivas was given the title Acharya. Thus they came to be known as Srinivas Acharya, Śyāmānanda Prabhu, and Nartam Das Thakur. Once, while Śyāmānanda Prabhu was sweeping the grove at Sevakunj in Vrindavan, he found Srimati Radharani's ankle bracelet lying on the ground. Overcome by ecstatic symptoms just by its touch, he reverentially touched it to his forehead, and the nupur, the ankle bell, left a mark. Due to this mark, his tilak looked different. Yogamaya then, and there's a footnote, other sources mention that Lalita Saki and Vishaka Saki approached Śyāmānanda Prabhu, and Srimati Radharani herself touched the bell to his forehead. But here, see, Yogamaya then approached Śyāmānanda Prabhu and said, "My daughter-in-law's nupur, ankle bell, fell off her feet while she was singing. If you have found it, please return it to me." However, Śyāmānanda insisted, "I shall return the nupur only to its owner." Then Srimati Radharani herself appeared to reclaim her nupur and in turn, offered the beautiful deity of Shyam Sundar to Śyāmānanda Prabhu. Indeed, Śyāmānanda Prabhu is the recipient of very special mercy from Srimati Radharani. That small deity of Śyāmānanda by Srimati Radharani can still be found in the Shyam temple in Vrindavan. In the same temple, the big deity of Shyam Sundar was established by Baladev Vijabhushan Prabhu later. So I guess that's small deity, huh? Such a sweet deity, such a sweet graha. To instruct us supplant authority by overset standards, Sri Jiva Goswami chastised Śyāmānanda Prabhu for having changed Nupur tilak instead of the conventional tilak adorned by the Guru Varga. Then Śyāmānanda Prabhu related the entire story behind the Nupur tilak. Each time he attempted to wipe off the Nupur tilak, it reappeared on his forehead of its own accord. Thus, it was accepted as a bona fide mark. To this day, the Nupur tilak is adorned by the descendants of Śyāmānanda. All right, so that Jai Śyāmānanda Prabhu ki Jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol. Chapter 4. I'm just writing a note here. We read up to chapter 4, verse 14. Okay. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki Jai. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shata Shishmar Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shila Guru Dev ki Jai. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shata Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Vamana Gosai Maharaj ki Jai. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shata Shishmar Bhakti Pragyan. Sorry, did I say Srila Prabhupada? Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shata Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shata Shishmar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj ki Jai. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shata Shishmar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitila Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Shila Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Nitila Pravishta Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Jai. Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Śrī Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Śrī Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Śrī Jeev Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath, Sārātha Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Śrī Swarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Śrī Gaur Parshada Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदत्त गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जय। श्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री हरिनाम श्री श्री विश्वनाथ चक्रवर्ती ठाकुर की जय। श्री Sārārtha-darśinī वृत्ति की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद's purports की जय। श्री ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। वासुदेव देवकी की जय। श्री कृष्ण चंद्र की जय। श्री यशोदा माया नंद बाबा की जय। श्री योगा माया की जय। श्री श्यामानंद प्रभु की जय। श्यामानंद प्रभु की जय। तदीय शुभ तिरुभाव तिथि की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्रीनिताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवाय कृष्ण भक्ति प्रददेवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः। पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। Dandava pranams to all of you. See you tomorrow. Jai Shri Ram. Tomorrow is going to be a fun day, fun reading day. There you go. Yes, that's correct, Yashoda Didi. That was a name. That was a name before. Mumbai was a name before, I heard, and then the British changed it to Bombay, I think, and then they changed it back. Same thing with Kolkata, and anyways, yeah, it happened with lots of names. All right, Hari